this would be a place where being sort of ethnically ambiguous or being able to blend into different, like I have a friend and you can't tell if she could be Italian, she could be Greek, she could be Eastern European, she could be Russian, right? Like that would be an advantage because you could like blend in different places. Can you give us two very different examples of places you've had to blend in?
Absolutely. So a lot of my operations were actually in East Asia. And the reason I was so effective in East Asia is because they are incredibly racist against anybody with brown skin in East Asia. So if you have brown skin, you're like less than the bottom of the social hierarchy. So the last thing they would expect of a brown person
Wow.
is that they were smart, trained, or trying to steal secrets. They're too busy looking for all the tall, 6 foot tall, like 6'5" Captain America, white American looking people. That's your spy, James Bond, right? So I operated a lot in East Asia where nobody knew that I was anything important. And I operated quite a lot in Latin America where I looked just like every other brown guy in Latin America, right? Even though I don't speak Spanish,
I mean, your name is Bustamante. It's like a fantastic last name.
It is, but it's an Italian Spanish Bustamante that I borrowed from my wife.
Okay, another silly question. Did you have to have different facial hair for disguises?
I did. And usually it wasn't very well groomed. It was more like as nappy and homeless as you could make it look. So one of the things that I'm still getting used to being on YouTube is actually trying to make myself look like I care about my face.
Did you have to use prosthetic beards and things, or it was just your natural beard? You would grow it out?
So we do use prosthetics. This is, again, I'm going to geek out with you for a second here, Em. The way that we use disguise, we call it costume, like we talked about, but the way that we use disguise in the field, there's 3 different levels. The most advanced level is also the most dangerous level because it's the least predictable level, and that's when we use prosthetics. So, I mean, nobody thinks about this, but if you don't use the right kind of adhesive, in the cold, it'll fall off. In the heat, it'll curl, right? If you don't use the right kind of matching skin prosthetic,
it'll look fake. You'll blow your cover.
Right away, exactly. Your nose will be like half falling off of your face. So what we try to do as much as possible is not change ourselves with prosthetics. And then if we have to use prosthetics, then we use prosthetics at great distance from the people who are trying to observe us. So for me, they would rather dye my beard or shape my beard or even like let me grow a beard, on vacation for 6 months and then bring it back and get it all nasty and dirty and then let me go out in the field. That's easier than shaving me and trying to put me in a straight-haired beard.
Have you ever had to be costumed as a woman?
No, not something I had to do operationally, but I have 100% worn female costumes to see if I could push my own skills in costume design.
And you could not?
No, it's hard to pull off looking like a girl when you're this ugly.
Hey, I think you're ugly. No, but I was curious because in some places you can cover your face as a woman. Like I've seen that in the movies. Who hasn't seen that in the movies or a cartoon?
It's true. And that's, when you're talking about a full cover, like when people wear a burqa or some sort of hijab, when you're talking about that, that is a different level of disguise. We don't consider that prosthetics.
Right.
We consider that still level 1 disguise, a very basic disguise, because it's just fabric.
I mean, anybody could do that.
Correct. Well, the eyes are the giveaway. And if anybody's ever seen...
Eyes are the window to the soul.
If anybody's ever seen an Arab woman in full garb, like she puts a great deal of effort into her eyes usually.
Here's another question, which is not as silly. And you don't have to answer, but I'm going to ask. Have you killed people?
Not intimately. And yes, we have different levels of killing. I'm sure you're not surprised to hear that, Em. We have intimate killing and we have non-intimate killing. Intimate killing is when you deliver the death blow with your hand. Non-intimate killing is when you participate in the demise of a target, the neutralizing of a target, by executing your portion of the job.
So the government sends you to kill people?
The government sends all of us, in a way, to kill people. We just have different, it's like an assembly line. Nobody does it all. Some people put on the bolt and some people put on the tire.
And I didn't mean to make this a personal attack on you. I'm saying that, like, when we think about,
if you haven't discovered your natural born spy skills, then somebody else may be using theirs against you. CIA teaches us there are only 3 types of people: those who manipulate, those who motivate, and those who are being controlled by one of the other 2. I built a 3-minute CIA-style quiz designed to help you unlock your secret psychological advantage and identify your biggest blind spot. This quiz will help you weaponize your natural gift and use it to get ahead of 99% of people in power, money, and purpose. Click on the first link in the description below or scan the QR code on your screen right now to take the test. I want you to discover your hidden spy skill and use it before someone else uses theirs against you.
when I think about, let's say, the Army, and I have great respect for people who, who serve our country. And it is a method of our government sending often, poor kids who they've promised a college education, sending people to do the dirty work of a government that also isn't always transparent about why they're sending us places. Do you see your role as kind of an extension of that bureaucratic killing machine?
Dishonesty.
Yeah,
Yes,
sorry.
absolutely. And no, you don't have, I love this conversation right now because that is a very real element that we have to come to terms with after our first or second field tour. After you've been in the field for about 2 years, you start to see through the smoke screen and you start to see what's really happening, right? And what's really happening is you were promised an opportunity and then you were brought into this very bureaucratic organization where you signed a lot of promises that are legally binding. And now all of a sudden you have to go, fight for a cause that you don't believe in. You have to go participate in a cover-up that is not being disclosed to the American people because you've been told that to disclose it to the American people would also mean disclosing it to your adversaries, so we're going to keep it secret from everybody, right? It's a very difficult world to live in, but again, we are psychologically predisposed to understanding that there are secrets that need to be kept and there are secrets that need to be shared. So it's not an easy lifestyle. That's why many people who have made it 15, 20 years in the agency, they come out psychologically flawed for the rest of their life. They can't recover, right?
I mean, we now have a larger understanding of what happens to soldiers. And I think that this is true, even if you feel that it is a just cause. I want to set aside the notion of participating in murder, assassination, what'd you call it? Non-intimate killing. That's going to do something. Seeing the destruction of war, that's going to do something to you and it's going to change you and it causes trauma. But I think kind of setting those things aside for the moment and kind of talking the way we're talking right now, it's very interesting because, what is the framework for your or anyone's personal comfort in being hired by a government to do things that you may not agree with? Where is that line?
And what's amazing is you don't ever think of that. When you are a good fit for the job, you don't think about that line on day one. You stumble into that line later on. And then you realize, oh shit, maybe I bit off more than I can chew. And to CIA's credit, they're familiar with this buyer's remorse. So there's a
Right.
very strong mental health component at CIA. They've got staff psychologists, they've got staff therapists, they've got staff PT, personal trainers, and exercise scientists who are all there to help you develop healthy coping mechanisms to deal with what you do every day. And when the time comes that you can no longer cope in a healthy way, they just take you off the line and then they put you in administrative jobs where you can't do any damage. And then they treat you with, whatever they can treat you with and whatever you choose to treat yourself with, which is why we see such a high rate of drug use and alcoholism, adultery, divorce, because lives just fall apart when people stay in service that long.
Are those mental health providers not incentivized to keep you going and to sort of push the limits of your coping mechanisms?
That's exactly what they're incentivized to do. And that's how they climb up their professional ladder, by finding new treatments, new combinations, new practices that take a field officer from 6 years of field utility to 8 years of field utility. They take them from 1 or 2 war zone tours to 3 or 5 war zone tours, right? If you can prolong the utility of a field operator, you've essentially increased the productivity of the entire workforce. And it's very clinical, very bureaucratic, and very mechanical in that way.
And I don't want to comment at all on the role of this organization or the people in it. But in a way, you're putting someone into a pressure cooker that you know eventually they're going to crack. And it's like, how do I keep them there as long as possible, functioning to do the job as well as I can, knowing that I'm just waiting, monitoring them to say, this eventually is going to be too much. They're going to not be capable of doing it anymore. And I'm just waiting for that. That's an intense.
You just described a lot of people's relationship with God, right? That God sets us up like, I know this is not going to go well on this planet, right? But let's just kind of like see what happens. I mean, this is sort of a microcosm, if you can call it that. It's a macrocosmic microcosm of kind of our existence, meaning like I've seen that Twilight Zone episode, right? Where it's like you wake up and no one else is there. And it's just like you're in this planet of no oneness. It's like, what am I doing here? What's my purpose? What am I supposed to do? Like, guess what? That's your lot in life. I mean, I don't mean to get all existential, but it's kind of interesting.
But you're right, Jonathan. And I think what's important is going back to the macrocosmic microcosm that Em just talked about. What you see at CIA, what you just laid out at CIA, is exactly what happens in the military. Why are there VA benefits? Why is there a veteran status? Right? Why are we seeing constant support for homeless veterans and suicidal veterans, et cetera? Because the military has learned over hundreds of years, and they learned it from the British before them, right? That you're putting people into a pressure cooker, maximizing their utility, hoping they don't die in combat before they have an ROI on their training costs. And then at the same time, you need a number of people to quit instead of retire, because only the people who retire are going to get continuing benefits for the rest of their life. It's a strange. One of the things that CIA taught me that I make a mantra every day is that the United States runs like a business. Everything runs like a business. It's a cost-benefit analysis. It's a return on investment versus diminishing returns. That's how the world really, really works. And CIA doesn't work any different than that.
I want to get into the pulling back the curtain, because through your time at CIA, you've seen how the US operates, how the world operates from your unique vantage point. And I want to get into that. Just wrapping up what we were talking about in terms of your field work, how much of field work is neutralizing targets versus collecting information?
Versus just hanging out, not looking like yourself and seeing what happens.
And when you're hanging out, not looking like yourself, usually you're collecting information. So it's about I would say, honestly, it's like 98% collecting, 2% neutralizing. Because once you neutralize a target, they're no longer a viable source of information. So you need to string that target along as possible. Maximize everything you can get from them. And only when the calculation becomes that they are more of a risk than a return would you consider neutralizing them.
Do you have to have sex with them?
You can have sex with them. It's an option, but there's a lot of paperwork involved. And
is that the main deterrent? Is the paperwork?
That is the main deterrent, to be honest. That is the main deterrent.
It's just like dating me.
Second to that, in the United States, we're really funny about sex. Sex in the United States oftentimes means connection, relationship, obligation, blah, 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 blah. Everywhere else in the world, sex is just sex. So if you go to bed with a Russian, chances are they're going to be way more in a position of power over you than you are over them the next morning.
Wait. Sorry, just Russians?
Oh, no. I mean, it goes on. Russians are just the primary villain in all the movies, right?
Oh, got it. Like I'm thinking James Bond, right? Like,
correct.
Yeah.